Hey there, hunters! Welcome back to the channel. I'm excited to talk about one of my absolute favorite games today, Bloodborne. Can you believe it's been 10 years since this masterpiece launched on PlayStation 4? 10 whole years! And yet, here we are in 2025, still talking about it, still playing it, and honestly, still begging Sony for that elusive remaster or PC port. You know what's crazy? While other games from 2015 have faded into obscurity, Bloodborne has only gotten stronger with time. The community is more passionate than ever, speedrunners are still finding new routes, and newcomers are discovering this Gothic nightmare for the first time. But the real question is, does Bloodborne still hold up in 2025? Should you pick up that controller and dive into Yharnam again or for the first time? Well, we're going deep into what makes this game tick, and more importantly, why it's still absolutely essential gaming in 2025. Let's start with what immediately grabs you about Bloodborne. That incredible, haunting world of Yharnam. FromSoftware didn't just create a game here. They crafted a living, breathing nightmare that feels both familiar and completely alien. Yharnam is this Victorian-era city that's been consumed by a plague called the Scourge of the Beast. The residents have been transforming into horrific creatures, and you arrive as a hunter, someone tasked with cleaning up this mess. But here's the thing, Bloodborne's storytelling is pure FromSoftware magic. They don't spell everything out for you. Instead, you piece together this incredible narrative through item descriptions, environmental storytelling, and those cryptic conversations with NPCs. What starts as a story about hunting beasts slowly transforms into something much more cosmic and terrifying. Without spoiling too much, let's just say that H.P. Lovecraft would be proud. The game just took this hard left turn from Gothic horror into eldritch nightmare territory, and it works so perfectly that you don't even see it coming. The lore runs incredibly deep, too. You've got the conflict between Master Willem and Lawrence at Birchenworth College, the discovery of the old blood, the founding of the healing church. There are layers upon layers of backstory that you can spend hundreds of hours uncovering. And honestly, that's part of the magic. 10 years later, people are still debating theories and discovering new connections in the story. Now, let's talk about what really sets Bloodborne apart from its Dark Souls siblings, the combat system. If Dark Souls taught you to be patient and defensive, Bloodborne throws that playbook out the window and screams, "Be aggressive." Gone are the heavy shields and careful, methodical combat. In Bloodborne, you've got a firearm in your left hand and a trick weapon in your right. But here's the genius part. Those guns aren't really for damage. They're for parrying. Time your shot just right as an enemy attacks and you'll stagger them, opening them up for a devastating visceral attack. It's incredibly satisfying when you nail the timing. Then there's the rally system, which is probably my favorite mechanic in any FromSoftware game. When you take damage, you have a brief window where you can regain that health by attacking back. It's brilliant because it forces you to be aggressive instead of backing off to heal. Taking damage becomes this risk-reward calculation. Do I retreat and use a blood vial? Or do I go on the offense and try to earn that health back? The weapon variety is incredible too. Every trick weapon has two forms that completely change how it plays. Take a saw cleaver. In its compact form, it's this fast, fertile meat grinder. Transform it, and suddenly you've got this extended saw blade with completely different combos from Reach. The Holy Moonlight Sword, Ludwig's Holy Blade, the Whirligig Saw. Each weapon feels like playing a completely different character. Movement is faster too. Instead of the heavy mowing from Dark Souls, you get these quick sidesteps and dashes when locked onto enemies. It makes every encounter feel like a deadly dance where positioning and timing are everything. speaking of encounters, let's talk about those boss fights, because wow, Bloodborne absolutely delivers here. The early bosses, like Cleric Beast and Father Gascoigne, are perfect tutorials for the game's mechanics. Cleric Beast teaches you about staggering and positioning, while Father Gascoigne forces you to master the parry system and aggressive play. But Gascoigne also introduces you to how personal and tragic these fights can be, especially if you find his daughter's music box. That moment when the music plays and he hesitates, chef's kiss. As you progress, the bosses get more complex and punishing. The blood-starved beast with its relentless aggression and poison attacks, Vicar Amelia with her towering presence and healing abilities. Each fight tests different aspects of your skill. But then you get to the DLC bosses, and that's where Bloodborne truly shines. Ludwig, the Holy Blade, that fight is absolutely legendary. The way it transitions from this horrific beast in the first phase to this tragic, noble figure in the second phase when the music swells, it's gaming perfection. Lady Maria is another standout. This elegant, deadly dance where she gradually becomes more desperate and aggressive, setting herself on fire in the final phase. And don't even get me started on the Orphan of Kos. That boss fight is brutal, emotional, and absolutely unforgettable. What makes these bosses special isn't just their difficulty, it's how they're woven into the narrative. Each one tells a story, reveals something about the world, or forces you to confront the consequences of the hunt. They're not just obstacles to overcome, they're tragic figures in this larger cosmic horror story. Now, I have to address the Bloodborne's technical performance, and honestly, this is where the game shows its age most clearly. The game is still locked at 30 FPS on PlayStation, even on PS5. There's no official remaster, no PC port, and Sony seems content to let this masterpiece gather dust while fans beg for basic quality of life improvements. The frame pacing issues that plagued the original release are still there, making animations feel inconsistent and jerky. If you're used to playing games at 60 FPS or higher, going back to Bloodborne can feel jarring. There are moments where the frame rate dips even below 30, especially in areas like Central Yharnam with lots of enemies on screen. It's frustrating because this incredible game deserves so much better. The good news is that if you're willing to go the emulation route, there are ways to experience Bloodborne at 60 FPS on PC using emulators like Shed PS4. The community has created mods that fix many of the performance issues, though it requires some technical know-how to set up properly. Loading times have improved since the original release, especially if you're playing on PS5's backwards compatibility, but they're still longer than you'd expect from a modern game. Despite these technical issues though, the core experience is so strong that it overcomes these limitations. Yes, it's frustrating, yes, Sony should have done better, but the game itself is still absolutely worth playing. I cannot talk about Bloodborne without mentioning the Old Hunters DLC, which is honestly some of the best content FromSoftware has ever created. The Hunter's Nightmare is this twisted reflection of areas from the main game, and it serves as both a prequel and a deeper dive into the lore. You learn about the origins of the first Hunters, the tragedy of the fishing hamlet, and the cosmic horror that underlies everything. The new weapons are incredible. The Whirligig-Saw, the Rakuyo, Simon's Bowblade, and of course, the Holy Moonlight Sword. Each one adds new playstyles and possibilities. But it's those boss fights that really elevate the DLC. Ludwig, Lady Maria, the Living Failures, the Orphan of Kos. This is peak boss design. These encounters are challenging, emotional, and absolutely spectacular. The DLC is harder than the base game, but in the best way possible. If you're going to play Bloodborne, and you absolutely should, make sure you play it with the Old Hunters included. It's not just additional content, it's essential to understanding the full story and experiencing everything this game has to offer.
So here we are in 2025. Is Bloodborne still worth playing? Without question, yes. Despite the technical limitations, despite Sony's neglect, despite the lack of a proper remaster, Bloodborne remains one of the finest games ever created. The combat is still unmatched in its aggressive elegance, the world is still hauntingly beautiful, and the story still rewards careful attention and multiple playthroughs. If you've never played Bloodborne, stop what you're doing and play it. If you played it years ago, now is the perfect time to return to Yharnam. And if you're a veteran hunter, well, you already know. The night is long, and we'll keep hunting until Sony finally gives us that remaster we deserve.